Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. It's Friday, TGIFF. Kermit is in the house as always. I like how Kermit is transparent and Stitch comes through the mud, by the way. I just noticed that. Okay. But it's not his fault. It's good to be green. So we're back. John is here as always, going away on international break. What's going on, John?
Well, nothing much. Happy that it's Friday, but upset that we're not going to be watching the Reds this weekend. Like, I hate international breaks, especially when we're flying high. So, yeah, I'm okay, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's something to talk about. Like, sometimes international break comes at a good time, sometimes it's at a bad time. I'm kind of torn on what time this one is. But with us, we have a new guest this Friday. Liverpool's 12th man is with us. What's going on, 12?
Hello to the chat. Hello to the panel, of course. And thank you for having me on your platform. It's a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure to be with fellow Reds, of course. So I'm excited of that and also appreciative of that as well.
You won't be by the time the show ends. Don't worry about that.
From what we hear, 12th is taking the name morning coffee to a literal sense. Because what time is it over there? 12th? Like,
it's an early morning. It's 7 a.m. now. So yeah,
right.
This is actually crack of the day style morning.
So are we doing? Are you a coffee guy or a tea guy?
You know what? I am. I enjoy chai tea, so I am more of a tea guy. But I do coffee as well. So I think I've always said that when I started drinking coffee, I understood that I'm a true adult now. That's how I always look at it.
Yeah, I'm a coffee guy now. I have been Americanized, not as much as maybe I should do Americanized Turkish one on there, but I mean, obviously Turkey, it's nothing but tea, but it's tea. Like, I don't consider all these other lame teas. Like, you gotta have like actual black tea, hardcore, bright red.
Absolutely.
That's basically how. And I realized when we went back home, actually, like with my wife, way back. I realized how much tea Turkey drinks because everywhere you freaking go, people offer. See, that's why you would think. Ryan says Turkish coffee. Most people would think everybody's going. Turkish coffee is more like I would say like the afternoon tea in England kind of thing, like a relaxation. Like somebody comes over as a guest, you offer them coffee kind of thing. But most of the time, it's tea, and Turkish coffee is usually like right after dinner. Because you freaking ate so much, you need something to wake back up, kind of a thing. And Turkish coffee will freaking wake your ass up. So
I was gonna say I've been to Turkey, so yeah, Turkish coffee is no joke for sure.
Turkish coffee is no joke. Yeah, I know. I drink really strong coffee normally, so I can literally at this point. It's really more psychological. I could just drink this coffee and go to bed. I can drink Turkish coffee and go to bed in like 20 minutes. I don't care. But Ryan says espresso. I mean, I do now because I'm partially Americanized, like I said. But no, like back home, it's really all you have is tea and then the occasional Turkish coffee. Because I know it's more of a pain to make Turkish coffee because especially if there's like 5 people. You're not offering freaking Turkish coffee, dude. That's going to take like 20 minutes to make all that coffee because you kind of almost make it one by one or at least 2 at a time. Whereas tea, you can make the whole thing, the 2-layer thing, and then everybody has tea. Now you guys made me want tea, damn it. Okay, let's go with I'll make tea after the show. Here we go. A couple of headlines. The biggest one for us, the guy on the right is staying. So the Saudi window is shut close. No more humid heat coming from there. So we're done at least hopefully till January. John, does this say anything about FSG? Like, will FSG out people be like, they're not all about money anymore? Or the fact that they kind of, I don't know. I know it was 150, but I feel like, if FSG responded in a way where we said, I don't know, if it was a bit more, we think about it, you would think they would come back with like a higher bid right away and keep going up. The fact that we were like, no, thanks. Does that say anything about FSG or it's more long-term planning anyway?
No, I think it's a little bit of both. I feel like they felt that even if they did get the money, where would they splash it on in terms of like a player replacement? I wasn't for selling Salah, no matter how much, at least at this point in time with the transfer window. But if we're talking about next summer and they come in with an offer of, let's say, 200 million plus, or like, I think 150 is still too few. even next summer.
Really?
Yeah.
I think 150 next summer.
Well, I don't know. I feel like we should get as much as we can for Salah, and considering like the cultural impact that he would have if they bring him on there, like he will essentially become the face over the face of that league over Ronaldo. So I feel like we could still get 200, and that's when I'm willing to sell him. But for right now, it's a good move. We don't have any time to get in a replacement. He started off well again this year. Like it's eighth season now. He's an 8th season wonder. So like, woohoo! I'm glad we kept him. So yeah, let's just hope for the best this year, and whatever happens next summer, let's cross that bridge when we get there, right?
Yes.
So 12, do you think if this bid came about the same time as the Fabinho bid, would things have unfolded differently? Is it just because you guys are too late, man? We're about to close. So, we open back up on Monday morning kind of a thing as they're locking the door, like somebody's walking in. They're like, hey, can I get one thing real quick? They're like, yeah, no, sorry. Come back on Monday kind of a deal. Like, would we have been a lot more, I don't want to say eager, but willing, let's say, to say if the offer came around the same time as Fabinho?
I think the Fabinho and especially the Henderson were more of like feelers out there, like testing feelers out there to see if we would be even interested to go into the to sell some of our prized assets into the market. But I also think that this said a lot more about, at least to myself, it said a lot more about Mo Salah, and it said a lot more about Liverpool in the sense, because it also showed that we want to say, oh well, we would possibly trade this player or transfer this player because of the money. It's a great, enormous fee. It was going to be a record-breaking fee. However, it also says volumes again, because it says that we chose loyalty over money. And I think that's exactly what it was. And I also think that Saudi Arabia, I think, understood and somewhat knew that there was no way we were going to send them this player. If they really wanted this player, they would have come earlier in the window, like they did for Hendo and like they did for Fab. But by going so late into the transfer window and starting off with what was, in my opinion, was an insulting fee, I think that it showed that they weren't necessarily really interested. More so, it was about getting publicity for the league and keeping the SPL in the headlines, which is what it did.
Yeah, I think they're all about disrupting at the moment. Like, right? Like they're making things uncomfortable. The more uncomfortable European leagues get, the more likely they will get their way ultimately, is kind of like the deal. So if something like this, let's face it, bugged the hell out of us, right? For the last 10 days, they're like, I would consider them to them it's probably mission accomplished. At least halfway. Yeah, you didn't get the guy, but Ryan says, I actually feel like we're in the driver's seat with Mo. Feel like they will sell it for almost whatever price we set next summer. I think we are now, because Mo is sitting on the passenger seat. But if you turn around and Mo got out the car, I think you're screwed. You're like, holy shit, where did Mo go? If Mo is like, yeah, I left, man. I left in the last stop. I'm going to Saudi Arabia. I'd rather go there. I think that kind of takes it away. I would think there's some kind of an understanding. But let me ask you this, John. If for Mo to stay on that passenger seat, do you think how we started the league and how it's looking right now, it's too early, obviously, 4 weeks in. When we did the panel show, we agreed that it was more of like a knee-jerk reaction to anything in the standings. But does that, do you think, make a difference that right now the future looks bright? If we start the season and it's kind of like a mid-season shambles we had last year, does Mo say, man, I think I'm going to go?
Well, I think to an extent it'll creep into his thoughts, because obviously, we're in a transition phase. Like, I think Van Dijk had an interview a few days ago saying that, like, he admitted that we are in a transition phase. But to counter that point, I think Mo is, like I told you in Kazi like a few shows ago, I think he's got that dog in him, man, where even if he knows we are in a transition, he wants to be the one to lead us back into our best, into where we belong. So I feel like even though, we started we started 3 wins and 1 draw. Let's say we started with 1 win and 3 draws, right? Or 2 wins and 2 draws. Like, not the best start, not exceptional. I feel like he'll still be locked in. I still feel like he won't be completely out the door, just because his mentality is that elite, man. And compared to some of our other players, I feel like he genuinely is kind of like that Gerrard figure with us. When everyone is down, he'll try his best to try and take everyone, even single-handedly, and bring us back up, as much as he can. So that's the kind of player I see Mo in terms of like his stay here with us. And I don't think he's the kind of player to back down from a challenge, honestly, even if we did start bad.
Yeah, Ryan says well, of course, like, hold on. Comments are coming hot and fast. So that I clicked the wrong one here. Season results do matter for both Mo and us. If things turn to shit before December, he's absolutely for sale in January. I think even before then, yeah, like if the season started poorly and it looked like, man, this is going to be a while before things get sorted, I think it's been kind of incredible how fast, especially. I think we all expected McAllister to be comfortable, but I don't think any of us expected Szoboszlai to be able to fit in this fast, considering his age, new league, new country, and all that kind of stuff. As good of a player as he is, I mean, look at how long it's taken. I don't know, way back like when we got Fab and stuff like that. But then Chris says Mo still gets that massive contract next summer in SPL. Regardless, it's a win-win for him. What do you think, 12? Is that basically what it is? This is not going away anyway. We'll come back to it. Let's take care of business first. Or do you think the start of the season has kind of an impact on Mo's mentality overall?
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, John. What John said, I agree with completely. I also think, though, what factors into it is how the results that we get this year. I don't think that it's a foregone conclusion that he leaves next year. I believe that if I know, or at least my interpretation of Mo is that he wants to win a Ballon d'Or. He wants to build an incredible legacy. One of his main passions and main missions was to come back to the Premier League to show them that we had made a mistake in letting him go, in the sense of at least, Chelsea letting him go and everything. So I believe that if we do perform well this season, there's an opportunity that he could stay. There's an opportunity. There's been talks actually that we are in the works of offering him another extension. So if we're going to look at this player now, the extension that I've heard that we're offering isn't another 3-year extension, which is somewhat of an excessive extension for a player that's now well into his 30s. But still, all the same, I think that we win the title. We win maybe I've been clipped up and put on blast about. We win our Europa quad, as I've been saying. Okay, then hey, it's a different story. That's a legacy building type story. And I think that even if you do listen to the interviews, a lot of people were really enthused about some of the interviews that they gave 2 years ago when we were going for the quad. You could see that there's a different mentality. When you're winning, you tend to be on board with a project. When you're losing, that's when you tend to say maybe this project isn't for you. And I think that's the most important variable in this process.
Yeah, sadly, I think we think we know, but it's like till that situation shows up, I think we don't realize, what the player's all about. I agree with you guys. I think Mo is very like a self-motivated kind of dude. He's big into records. He wants to, he's like really cares and worries about his legacy. That's why he doesn't want to come off, and he wants to be out there. He wants to be constantly playing and stuff. Yeah. I honestly don't think we ever give him a contract that he would be happy with and we would be happy with, especially at that age. Do you do it maybe because he's going to expect even more wages? I just don't see FSG spending.
It's a report. Just to tell you, the report is that we're looking to bump him up to $400,000 a week, basically.
Yeah, I would be shocked if FSG did that, like did a 3-year contract, unless they did it knowing. Hey, worst comes to worst, we'll just sell them to Saudi Arabia anyway. They'll come in.
But that's the thing about it. That's not to cut you off. I was going to say that's the thing about it. We have to also understand that he is possibly one of the biggest, brands, or when it comes to not only football in general, but especially in the Arab world and also in the Muslim world, which is an enormous portion of the watching audience. So you have to understand that he is a huge commodity in itself. And, I understand that sometimes people look at that number or that salary that he's making, but the sheer money, look how much you make off of, like, let's just say shirt sales alone, how much money you make off his likeness, how much money, all the different things, all the different avenues that you can actually create revenue from having a player of his status. And especially someone that is now a loyal patron, is now like whose name and likeness is almost synonymous with Liverpool in itself, it's a big plus. And that's what I think is important.
I think the issue with wages is, and you see this in a lot of clubs, and it goes south really fast. And I think that's one thing that, like wage structure, everybody like mocks FSG for it and stuff, but it's important in the locker room. I think
Absolutely.
it's not that we can't pay the 400,000. Yeah, you can get squeezed 400,000 of them, do a trip, off-season trip to Egypt or something like that alone, and that will pay for it.
Yeah.
But I think that's what happens then is Diaz says, wait, I'm getting 100. He's getting 400. What the hell is going on? I have just as many goals. And then the other guy says that. So it bumps everybody up. And, the other guys are not as marketable and stuff like that. So that's one reason I don't know if I will be shocked if FSG does that. That's why I always assume it will be sold unless they did like a year extension with more understanding the whole situation too. Because, as much as Serzi was saying, credit to Salah and his agents, I mean, after all, it's all about, the bottom line and what they can get and stuff. Do you think, John, that FSG would fork out the cash and do an extension for someone over 30?
Yeah, I know.
We talked about it before, though, right? We all expect, I think we're all in agreement that Mo will play another 5 to 6 years probably.
Right.
Obviously, with at diminishing levels as you go. But in terms of, quality and his soccer smartness and stuff, those don't go away. His speed and stuff, agility and stuff might a little bit. So we understand he's gonna play, but John, do you think FSG would be like, how about 400,000?
Listen, logically, no. If we're basing it on patterns, if we're basing it on how they did their business years past and all that, hell, they didn't even come with an agreement with Gerrard, for Christ's sake, right? So like that's like the most damning thing that I've ever seen. But I digress. Listen, logically, no, but I hope we do. Because, listen, I know it's going to be a diminishing return thing, but I still have that romanticized view of players. So I would love to see Salah retire as a Liverpool player.
I used to, then Henderson happened.
Right. Like, I know, like, Henderson leaving and, probably Van Dijk, my boy, who's going to be leaving, eventually soon, is going to be shattering my view. But, I hope, but logically, no, I don't think they will.
I disagree, actually, to be honest with you. I think that the Henderson, and look at the fact that we just offered a contract to a man that was 37 years old, So the contract try to get, or at least we were in, or the coach that we have now was interested in offering, Milner an extension. We did give Henderson.
But it wasn't 400,000.
It wasn't 400,000, but I mean, like, it's not like Milner makes peanuts. It's not like Henderson makes peanuts. Henderson was on some, I think, like at least 150K, for a man his age, getting that for him getting that kind of salary is an amazing salary. But I mean, Milner was similar. It was like, I think he's on like 120K or something like that, So I mean, they weren't making peanuts. And considering that, it's more of like, I understand that diminishing returns seems to be one thing, but again, I'm a football romantic too, John. So I understand your the concept of you want to see your players retire. You would like to be able to give them that farewell. That's just in football in general. That's just not a commonplace occurrence. But I also think that there's no guarantee that we wouldn't try to offer, or at least make an offer, because we know that there's plenty of players. Hey, we were going to give Keita an extension. Okay. So like, we were actually interested in extending his contract. So when it comes to
trying to keep the physios busy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Get our money's worth from the physios that way. So that was a twofold.
Let me just say, 12th, don't give me hope, please. Like, you're making some very good points here, but don't give me hope.
Yeah, you guys are. I was already a cynical bastard, and then Henderson happened to just be like, once I was a cynical bastard, I was like, maybe, and then, but hey, as we all know, money is not a motivator, people. So that's what Henderson says. So I'm buying it. I'm not buying it, but God knows there are a lot of people online buying it. So I don't know how that happens. So speaking of awards and people for awards, somehow Alisson is not in the top 10. While I understand this is more about, it goes twofold. I look at some of the names in there, John, and like some of them are like because their teams made a run or something like that, right? But some of them are like, how did you get in here? Kind of an ordeal when like Alisson is not there.
I did not see
What do you
Andre
make of it?
Onana there. I did not see Andre Onana there. That's all I can
Right.
say. He's
Right.
right there, right? He's there. I'm not blind, right? Andre Onana is there. While our boy Allison, again, I'm sorry to cut you off, Tim, but I sent you that link because I was absolutely enraged when I saw that. I was like, what? Like, we're talking about the best goalkeeper award. Goalkeeper, not best team of the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper. And if we're talking about points saved, no one comes close, man.
Yeah.
Like as guys who've watched Liverpool regularly, especially towards last season, if we had a lesser goalkeeper between the sticks, we don't finish 5th. We finished below 10th. That's all I can say. And how do we judge a goalkeeper? We judge him on how many points, how many goals he saves from being conceded. And if we're talking purely on that metric, no one comes close to Allison.
Yeah, shocked about that as well. I mean, like I say, I didn't expect him to win it because these awards do end up becoming, even though they are personal, they do also look at what your team did because they're looking at like what you contributed to the success, kind of an ordeal. But are you shocked that he's not even on the short list? I didn't expect him to win it by any means, but I would have thought he would be in the conversation.
Yes, I agree completely. This was a shocking occurrence for myself. I know, though, I've taken a little bit out of my faith in the Ballon d'Or. I did this on my channel as well because, I wanted to know, how the voting process actually goes on. What is the actual, process and everything else behind it? Because it has changed even from 2021 to 2022.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty interesting process now that we're left with, because now what it is that it ends up being the France Football and l'équipe journaliste, Ballon d'Or ambassador, Drogba ends up being a part of it. And then you have 3 random journalists that happen to, it's almost like a lottery where if their sheet lines up with the actual winners and then they get to be a part of a 3 journalist panel. It's like a really, really interesting situation.
Yeah, even as you were explaining it, you constantly had to face like, it doesn't make sense to me either.
Yeah.
But
Exactly. And for me, a lot of what happened with Virgil van Dijk, who I thought should have been the hands-on player, Ballon d'Or winner. And then also, if you see like how it has evolved again with the voting, I was like, you know what, my faith somewhat left when I thought Mo should have won the Ballon d'Or as well a couple years ago. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, this is more of like a popularity thing. It's more of like they've tinkered with it and twisted around to kind of suit their own personal needs, So it's one of those things where I just no longer can play too much credence in the awards.
Yeah, I mean, it is mostly a popularity thing, right?
Yes.
For fans and stuff like that. Because if they really put some performers out there, but didn't have freaking Messi or somebody on there, nobody cares, nobody watches, kind of thing. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. Unless one of our boys is involved, I think I watched only one ceremony my entire long ass life, and that's the one that Van Dijk was nominated. I mean, I have not watched. Nor do I care. Normally who wins it. It does not make any freaking difference. It's like to me, it's a popularity contest more than anything else. My only thing is I know the players care, and I feel bad for Alisson that he's not even on there. But you would think if he was on there, John, and didn't win it, it'd be one thing. I would think a guy like Alisson probably, if he's not on the list, says, fuck that. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, and just moves on. It's almost like too obnoxious to even be upset over.
Well, I was upset over it, so you're kind of making me feel bad. Because I kind of have a personal connection. Like, I wasn't really a good soccer player, but I played goalie, so I kind of have a connection with the position. So,
the plot thickens.
Right.
Okay.
So, like, you saw this guy just absolutely go out on a limb and save us from certain death so many times last year, and for his efforts not to be recognized, like, I kind of sound melodramatic, right? But for him not to even be recognized,
you are a goalie, so it makes sense. Go ahead.
Right. For him not to even be recognized, like us goalies get a bad rap, man. Like, we don't even get recognized for shit. Like, we do a lot, but then everyone just says, "Oh, we just stand there in front of the goal. That's all we do." Like, listen,
Yeah.
like our boy Allison, like again, he saved us countless times last season. He saved us already like quite a bit of times this year. Like that save against Newcastle was one of the best I've ever seen, like in my short existence in this earth. So listen,
Yeah, keep rubbing that shit in. Okay.
Right. So like, all right. I before I lose my train of thought, yeah, it's unfortunate. Like Tim's got the jokes this morning, man. It's making me laugh, but but yeah, man. Like, listen, if that kind of season doesn't get you at least the nomination, we gotta, like, there has to be like a transparent, like as 12th was saying, like a parameter as how they're being judged and everything, because it doesn't make sense for me, unfortunately.
Honestly, this is a really good point.
Yes.
Allison is the one player in the squad that is irreplaceable, in my opinion. I mean, I was more, and here's what I think. I agree 100%. And here's how I tell you: I was more worried when Allison's name came up with Saudi Arabia than I was when Mo's name came up with Saudi Arabia. Maybe because I was kind of expecting the Mo thing to eventually happen because it makes a lot of logical sense. But what do you think, 12? I mean, I agree exactly what Chris is saying. Ryan does as well. That it's one guy that, I mean, obviously, goalies are diamond doesn't like John over here. You can throw one in there, but nobody can do what like Allison does. No other goalie can do that. And we see top teams constantly struggle finding that right guy. So it's almost like if we picked one guy, like a fantasy draft where, you know, you keep one keeper,
Right.
you would keep the keeper, wouldn't you?
Certainly. I think Allison is an amazing individual. First off, I appreciate Allison greatly. I think he has changed a lot of people's opinions towards goalkeepers, being like as John was stating, or you know, goalkeepers tend to get a bad shtick when it comes to, you know, reputation. They end up being like the crazy one, or they're not. You know, you hear even former players, they tend to not even like, you know, discount their opinions, you know, even when you see it on ESPN FC, for instance, you know, Shaka, who I love and I appreciate to see that he's doing well health-wise now. But Shaka tends to be like, they tend to be the kind of like, he's kind of the jokester of it, you know, he kind of like, you know, he doesn't give him any props or any credit for being, you know, an important player. But if you look at the list that we saw be the Ballon d'Or top 10, or not the top 10, but the top, the 10 nominees, Ederson was in there. The team went for a treble. Okay, so that's understandable. Ramsdale, considering that Ramsdale has now been demoted and is about to be, you know, and Ray is going to be taking his place as the starting goalkeeper. That's a little bit of a question mark for me. But I also know that Arsenal had a phenomenal run last year, and you know, and the headlines were the only reason why there was any headlines about the Premier League being any bit of a chase or a title race was because of Arsenal. So that's the only reason why he gets into that conversation. But everyone else is primarily World Cup or, you know, their own individual team performances.
To play the devil's advocate, though, because that's what I do. Let's say we judge attacking players, right? And then, you know, when people compare numbers and stuff like these for these awards, we look at like goals, we look at, you know, like assists and stuff like that, regardless of who's around them. Obviously, if there are better players around you, you're going to do better. Or if there's somebody else taking the attention away from you occasionally, instead of being the sole attention, obviously you're going to do better. So is it fair for them then, John, to look at clean sheets and stuff like that, regardless of the performance? Because we could say, you know, in defense of Ellison, you can say, hey, behind that freaking line, he's lucky to concede so many goals, and go by the stat that you're talking about in terms of goals saved. But like I say, when you convert it to the forward we're talking about, I mean, we don't punish them for the ones they missed. We just look at the bottom line numbers. And we don't talk about, well, he has this guy next to him, freaking like giving him empty nets tap-ins all the time. We look at how many goals scored. So how about that for devil's advocate?
Well, for goalies, obviously it's different, right? And obviously, if we're talking about purely of the metric of clean sheets and goals conceded, Allison isn't really up there, considering we had a bad season last year. But there are also other metrics to measure how good he was. I remember seeing this graphic on Twitter. Like, I regret not providing it for this show. Like, I think points saved or something, and he's
Yeah.
like way at the top of the list. Like, come on. Again, what do goalies do? If we're talking about the very basic definition of what a goalie does, which is saving goals, which is preventing goals from coming in, there we go. Allison, number one. So, like, I get team performance being part of it. I really do. But not even a nomination. Like, I'm just asking for a nomination. I'm not even asking him to win it. Come on, like, not even a nomination, guys.
Yeah, I mean, he was only one
Right,
claim.
there
Yeah,
we go.
exactly. I didn't expect him to win it by any means, right? But for him not to be in the top 10 is almost like somebody went out of their way, and I don't know why they would. So you try to sniff out a conspiracy or something like that, but I don't even know like why there would be a conspiracy against, or they were like, we can only take one goalie from Brazil or something. Is that like because they took Ederson, the quota is filled? I have no idea, but I mean, there has to be. It just doesn't make sense. I think you can ask any soccer fan right now. And, let's face it, soccer fans have a really short-term memory. So it's not like they're going to be like, 10 years ago, he had a great season. If you go ask any soccer fan now who follows soccer, give me your 5 top goalies, regardless if they're a Liverpool fan or not, they will mention Alisson. I think it's a no-brainer. Probably top 3. I mean, I look at that list, and there's maybe like Courtois, you can kind of say, hey, the guy wins shit by himself. So he can get credit for that. I think Alisson is way better than Ederson personally. So Courtois was the only guy that I looked and said, there's a couple of like people who had great performances or a great year, but overall there is no way. But I do agree that goalies are a little crazy, which this explains now. All the pieces are coming together, John. Like the puzzle, that was the last piece of the puzzle. Now we know why you are a little nuts. Yeah, because I think at least the good goalies are always a little crazy. Like any goalie I've played with my entire life, and that's a long ass life. The good ones are always a little nuts because you have to be a little nuts to dive at somebody full speed kicking a ball. You gotta be a bit more nuts than the average individual. So I'm gonna use this information for days to come. That's for sure. Okay. Okay, let's go back to this right here. We can talk United messes. I mean, I don't want to be here till like Monday morning and wait for Polish Prince to show up. But Sancho, I thought that was an still open. Windows are the Turkish league. I think the Greek league is as well. Do you guys see 12? Do you see Sancho going somewhere else so that they're like, hey, why don't you go clear your head in the Mediterranean? Or do they try to work this behind the scenes?
I know that the Sancho thing, as I said before, we were talking about backstage. Sancho was one of those situations where, look, I was very, very high on Sancho. I thought that it would have been a great addition. I thought just on the field performances, I thought that would have been a great addition. Obviously, I think that Klopp can take players to next levels. The Dortmund links and everything else was also positive. The fact that he was a homegrown player was a positive. All these different aspects of Sancho to me was like, oh wow, I would love to have seen him, come to not only the Premier League but also become possibly a Red. But when he went to the Red Devils, that's a different story. Now all of a sudden, my opinion has somewhat, changed on the his player arc, if we want to put it that way. But I also know that his issues and problems with the things that we're hearing about aren't just synonymous with Manchester United. It also deems back to his time at Dortmund, where he's had issues with being on time or issues with practice and those all the issues that are coming out now, which is concerning. And one of the questions I posed to, and I'll pose this to your chat as well, but would I take Sancho today? It's a good question. It's still a very good question. Would you take Sancho if they were to terminate his contract, which is possibly a consideration? Would you take that player on a deal? And I'm kind of leaning towards possibly. And that's the scary thing about it, even with all of the issues, knowing how Klopp is just an incredible influence on players. Maybe he can get the return that we all need and would love to see out of a young man. He's still.
That's a good question, actually, John.
Whew, I've been thinking for the past 10 seconds.
I know I saw smoke in the background.
It's an intriguing prospect, it's an intriguing thing, but not for me because we're pretty stacked in attack for one. If we weren't, maybe. Like, where does he play, on the left or the right?
He plays on the left, but at Dortmund he played on the right.
He played on the right.
So he can play both wings, which is intriguing. But Klopp really has a thing with attitude. Right. I remember when he came in, he had like this no assholes policy. I don't know if you guys remember what happened with Sacco. He was like dead set on being one of our first choice CBs. Then he just started becoming he just started doing whatever it is he did back then. So okay, Chris is
I know.
That's what I understand from the last two messages.
Yeah. A little fused with the chat there. Question.
So the chat has decided. Here's the thing. Let's play devil's advocate again. While he has the attitude, John, and we know sometimes I always bring like, you know, since we're over here, American Scouser, like let's go like NFL, like the Patriots, right? Mm-hmm. They would sign these people that are what's considered to be trouble child, or he's a pain, he doesn't know how to win, blah blah blah. Sometimes when you go into an environment where it's established, I think it would be a lot more resounding yes if you asked me this question last year, when you had Hando and Milner as captains, and it was a bit more of a military regime having Milner there and stuff like that. Right. Now I'm a bit more like, probably. But going back to my question, when you sometimes take these people and put them in an environment where it's really, really structured, and you stick out like a freaking sore thumb when you don't go by the rules, those people adjust themselves. Or the team makes them either adjust or get the hell out, because the team itself is a unit. We know for a while this was the worst place for somebody like that to go, or maybe that's why he did go there, because he knew he could play his own music in the background. So I feel like, so do you think, John, that, you know, like I say, if it was last year, would you say yes? Would you say, I'm not even asking Chris. Well, I'll ask Chris, though, actually, in the comments. Like, would you say yes last year when we had Hando and Milner, where you feel like he comes into a structured environment and people are like, that's not how we do things over here. So you do it our way, or you're out?
Yeah. Again, it's a tough question, but it's still a no for me, because last year we had quite a bit of head cases too. We had Darwizzi, we had Nunez, bro. Like, listen, he comes off as humble, but that red card that he got against Crystal Palace to start the year last year was like an indication of his temperament. Like, he is a bit of a hothead too. So I feel like we already have that kind of a loose cannon sort of deal, like sort of player in Darwin. And like, we're slowly integrating him into the squad. We're seeing how good he is. So I don't think adding another piece, regardless of if we got Henderson or Milner, would have made a difference, honestly. Like, it would have made some, but I'm not sure if Klopp would take that gamble, considering, I don't know, the face value. He knows that the player has sort of an attitude issue. So listen, if it happened, I wouldn't be against it. I'd trust Klopp to do it. But if it didn't, I'd be perfectly fine. And I'm leaning towards no. It's a no for me.
I mean, his craziness is a different kind of craziness, though. Like, Nunez's craziness is different than Jaden crazy. Like, Nunez is still a professional, just a crazy one. Maybe he should be a goalie. Chris says nope, didn't want him before he went to United. He's this era's Jordan Ibe. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a compliment to Ibe or that's an insult to Sancho. I don't know which way we're going.
Look at what you steered here, 12. Look at what you got the chat all riled up and everything.
I just wanted to say, though, I mean, like, I'm not saying that we would spend money for him. I'm saying as a free agent.
Yes,
a free agent. Because if they're offering to possibly buy him out of his contract, he'll get paid. So right now he's making £350,000 a week. Okay. So obviously we're talking about, I'm a big proponent of team harmony when it comes to, salary wage harmony as well, to produce a good locker room. $350K for a player of Sancho, even though Sancho is a pretty decent player, I still can't see that ever happening, to say that he's going to be making Mo Salah style numbers. But let's just say with the contract termination, with him getting a renewal on life, him basically saying, hey, Manchester United, you've turned your back on me. You've kind of thrown me to the wolves. You kind of, you've obviously, the hatred. Now he's going to become the villain. Comes to the rival and renews his career. I mean, it would almost be Michael Owen-esque type deal, type of
I like the scenario. Like, I'd watch the movie, but
I'd watch the movie, man. I would, man.
But I don't know if I go to the sequel. I mean, no, I know what you mean. I agree with Ryan. If we got him next to nothing, that would be, I think, I wouldn't sign him. But I think what you bring, and that's why I kind of bring that other scenario. Like, I know Ryan was saying, like Belichick can deal with that. I really think it's kind of like a locker room that deals with people like that as well. It's not, I mean, we always think it's the manager, but in any locker room, depends on what the rest of the team does. You can have a manager beat the guy's head in. If the rest of the team is not responding to that and saying like, oh man, you're fine, don't worry about him, that's a different story than the rest of the team saying, yeah, you should be your own freaking time, or whatever this situation is. So I would not mind the gamble, but at a very low cost, like you're saying, like, but I honestly don't think Sancho is going to be like, oh yeah, I'll come over there. What do you guys like, a sandwich? Like, it's not going to happen. I honestly think right now, the only window open, like I say, is there'll be a team in like Turkey or Greece or whatever that might, I mean, who wouldn't want him? It would be kind of like they freaking signed Greenwood, for God's sakes, in Spain. So because United is going to have to yet pay for another players' wages that's not playing for them. So, they would cover like probably like 80%, 90% of it or something like that. Exactly. And there'll be a team taking a chance at it. And then they would try to unload him in like January or something like that. It's just like, I mean, it's United. You never put it past them, but it's kind of like really odd for them to just say, yep, terminate. I guess that was a $80 million mistake. How much did they pay for him?
Yeah, it was close.
Somewhere around there, right?
Yeah, it was close to that.
That's freaking. I mean, I felt it was crazy money and not worth it at that time. So definitely, I mean,
at least we could laugh about it, right? At least we could laugh about it.
Yeah, exactly. Chris says, you know what Sancho rhymes with? No. Hell no. So it's like the same syllables. Okay, well, we're at United. Let's keep freaking going.
Oh no,
Anthony. Obviously, this came out earlier. It's one of those things that more is coming out as we go. I thought when it first came about, we didn't talk too much about it because really nobody knew anything. Still to this point, I don't think we know a lot, John. I know you're all over these headlines because we were talking about it this morning. What do you make of the whole ordeal? Like it got really, really blurry with, him calling United, asking for a doctor. United sends this guy over. It sounds, speaking of like bad movie scenarios, sounds like a really bad, cheap movie where like dad is drinking whiskey along the window and says, go clean up his mess again. And then, says to his son, sit down, you fucked up again and stuff, and like this doctor's going over there trying to clean up the mess kind of a thing. I know it's not that. United says, hey, we're not trying to cover him up. This happens all the time. They call us for doctors. Like when a player calls 911, like United picks up the phone kind of a deal. But what do you make of this entire story?
Listen, first of all, it's unfortunate. Like, obviously, there are potential victims in this scenario. So hopefully, justice can come for them. And Chris makes a good point here. If you remember, PR, don't use the word that United is using because, like, listen, they haven't had the best start to the season. And this isn't helping matters any. Like, I don't want to joke about it, but I can't get over how they have more players with allegations than they do wins. Like, to start the year. Like, I know it's not something to be laughed about, but I just got to throw that out there.
It's United. It's free.
Yeah, it's United. But listen, with this whole Anthony thing, I didn't know that thing that you mentioned to me, Tim, to start the broadcast where they sent the doctor, where he called for the doctor regarding his partner's injury, regarding the breast implant thing. So that comes off to me as United knowing what was going on. Yeah. What was going on behind the scenes, which, listen, I'm going to give it to you guys. That is obviously an absolutely awful look. Right?
Well, I'll just give that to you then, 12.
Just hand me that grenade, huh? Thank you very much.
Hot potato. There you go.
Yeah, because... Yeah, go ahead, 12. Sorry.
No worries. No, I'll be like MacGyver here. I would say, you know what? Obviously, when it comes to our rivals, whenever I see them wallowing in misery and everything else, you you just sit back and just sip your tea or you sip your coffee and enjoy the show. But I understand that they're, the Glazers they own Tampa Bay, for instance. They own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and as we well know, in America, most of these clubs have a assortment of private investigators or people that they involve in their team to create or to protect their brand, basically. So seeing that the fact that they utilize something like that, or seeing that there's outlets and there's access points for these players to be able to turn and say, hey, I'm in trouble, I need some help, can you help me out? It's not really, to me, it's not something that I'm like surprised to see, because again, we see it all the time, whether it's NFL, whether it's the NBA, they are going to protect their brand, they're going to protect their asset being the club. And the club's number one asset is their players, obviously, and their reputation is key, of course. So I wasn't very surprised to see that Manchester United or the Glazers, however you want to place it, had some part in what we're actually seeing. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw more clubs have the same situation.
And I think that kind of becomes that, right? I mean, I'm sure, I hate to say it, but I mean, none of us are naive. Stuff like this happens probably a lot more than what we hear. The ones we hear are the ones that are not handled well, and then they come out. Or they are maybe, I shouldn't just say the ones that are not handled well, but maybe the more serious ones / the ones that are not handled well. A lot of these probably are made to go away by those people you're mentioning, 12. Like they get involved and, they're like, oh, why don't you sign this real quick? And here's the check. And, they probably make a lot of these problems go away, right or wrong. Every club is probably doing it. We would like to think, nothing has ever happened with the Liverpool player, but I mean, it's like we're signing these guys. It's not like, they're all like homebred. It's going to happen. John, so what do you think that United's should do, knowing that they had you would think, having the Greenwood experience, they would have approached this and handled this a lot better. And they have not so far. But if you were United right now, how do you handle this, Anthony thing?
I would keep him out of the team until like a formal investigation is concluded, and those who are identified, and then like a possible verdict is done. Like, listen, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how these things work, but obviously, like you said, they haven't handled the Greenwood situation very well anyway. So the best thing they can do now is just try and salvage this situation by just maybe keeping him out of the team, because listen, this is just one of many with them. So listen, their lawyers are going to be working double time now trying to invest, and the private investigators that 12th mentioned. So it's a complex situation, but I think the safest route, and again, I'm not an executive or anything, I don't have the qualifications for that, but what you asked what I would do, I would just keep him away from the team for the time being.
Yeah, Chris says like Klopp and the club having the recruitment requirements, and I think that's one thing, because when we look at these, usually Ryan says I would sign Ronaldo.
If they brought Ronaldo back, that would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious. I mean, I don't know that sport. It's like bringing Igalo back or bringing him back, or
that a long time ago.
So. I mean, here's the thing, though. At the same time, to play devil's advocate, if this happened to one of our players, John, would you do the same thing? Like, let's say something comes up. Let's say Diaz, like a newer player, like trying to find somebody. Diaz is a lot better than him, I think. But still, let's go with Diaz. If something like this came up with Diaz, something happened in Colombia and stuff like that, would you say let's not play him until then? Or would you say because these things can take a long time, as we all know. Unless they're made to go away. If it really takes this regular legal progression, it can go like a long time. The ones that get done fast are because they make the victim take their complaint away and stuff like that. That's why it gets resolved faster. Would you or let them play until they are proven?
Well, the thing with United is, I feel like why I said that they should keep him out of the team was just because they were already dealing with a similar situation with Greenwood. And they didn't handle that well. So with this whole thing, they're kind of in damage control mode, if that makes sense, where it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good anymore with with Greenwood, and then Anthony comes in, and they're like, "Oh my god, again!" So the fans are like in an uproar, like they haven't started well. Like I have to keep rubbing that in, right? They haven't started well. They haven't started well. So like this whole thing comes in, like everyone's morale is at an all-time low. So like, yeah, it would make sense. But in terms of like the Diaz thing the hypothetical Diaz scenario, again, not my Liverpool bias talking. I just explained why. If we had no prior allegation maybe to it, or no prior similar situation like United are having with Greenwood, I'd probably let him play first, because if we're being technical, it is an allegation. So nothing is proven by a court of law yet.
Right.
So it would make sense to just play him first until, proper evidence and the proper channels have gotten this evidence and have made a decision. So yeah, I would play him. But United obviously don't have that luxury right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I know that's a fair way to look at it. Ryan says didn't. Yeah, Naby had this thing where there was an allegation, and then I think it was alive and well for like 24 hours or like maybe 48 hours or whatever, and then it went away. I mean, again, did we make it go away at the time, or was there nothing to it? Because you would think once it gets out, the media is all over it to be able to find whatever. It's too late. It's out of the bag kind of a deal. So, but that went away, and obviously we didn't do anything. I remember at the time we said, we'll let the investigation take its place, which is what most clubs say and probably should say. So, 12, let me ask you, what would you do, or what would you do if it's a Liverpool player, and what do you think United will do?
Well, first off, I would have to consult my lawyers, so that would be one thing.
I wouldn't if you were United, because it's
right,
not
exactly. Right. But no, honestly, I think what John said was spot on in the sense of, look, right now these are allegations. Right now, I think every man and every man and woman is welcome to have, proven as innocent until proven guilty. And I do hesitate simply because, one, I have been an agent in my life, so I do know that there are different aspects when it comes to the players and the relations with their girlfriends or with other females or other people in general. There's some sticky situations, and there are people out there that are trying to get over on these players. So you have it's not like it's always just the player's fault, but all the same, you can end up having a situation like a Mendy situation, which is, a man losing 2 years of his life in being incarcerated for 2 years of his life and coming out to find out that he was innocent, or at least he's proven not guilty, and you don't get those years back. You just simply don't. With the Greenwood situation, they were paying him. And also I know that Seven Hogg did ask to, it was his vote to bring him back, actually. Excuse me. So it ends up saying, if you're a player that has worked, or in the sense of on the pitch, or is actually a good player, they will twerk or contort their way to try to make it work for the club to include you in their plans. However, I mean, if you weren't someone that was good, obviously you're not going to get the same amount of attention and the same amount of defense from club. So it is a sticky situation. I know, excuse me, Greenwood was getting paid the entire time that he's going through this situation, and it's also, there's contracts. So, until he's proven to be by a court and said, this is what it is, I think you're going to get into a very sticky situation because, players have lawyers too.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the player can say, I mean, if you did it with any allegation, then we can just go make an allegation before the guy plays us, and then get him out of the picture, kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, Chris is right. Sad situation, talent should not outweigh the morality, and sadly, it does. I mean, we see it over and over and over again, because at the end of the day, there's money involved with this dude not playing, and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, the more talent, the more money. So the differently it gets handled, sadly. But I'm sure there'll be a lot more coming out on this as we go over here, because constantly new. And this is what I mean. That's why I felt like maybe, because Liverpool player is easier to maybe say there was probably not much to it. I felt like maybe there was not much to that thing, to the Naby thing, because once it came out, this
Yeah.
is what the media is going to do. They're going to find more and more. I know there was like stuff about like there were other people who had complaints on Anthony and stuff like that. So they're going to dig all this stuff out, especially at this day and age, especially with the transfer market being closed. There's nothing else for these interns to do. So they're going to be like really digging into this stuff, and there's going to be more and more, I'm sure, news coming out. So let's finish off in a lighter notes over here, because this definitely involves John and definitely me. Are you a gaming guy, 12?
I am a gaming guy. Yes, I am.
You're a FIFA guy as well?
I am more of a football manager guy, but
okay.
Like I said, I'm drinking coffee these days, so I am a big boy, but all the same. I do play FIFA. I'm actually kind of disappointed with the FIFA league because it's funny. I was trying to put on for the FIFA, for instance, the 23. I know 24 hasn't dropped yet, but 23. I was trying to find Andre just to kind of get an idea and sense of like, what would he be? What would he be like on this team? Yes, unfortunately, a lot of Brazilian players aren't included actually.
Really, I'd not even noticed that. You know what? You're right. Yeah, because I remember when it first came out, that was one of the leagues, and I was like, I don't care, kind of a deal. But
right.
Yeah, a lot of people, you were just doing it for shits and giggles. But sadly, a lot of people, when they have if they don't watch a lot of the game, they kind of go and look at their ratings to see. They're like, he can't shoot. Look, he's only 75.
Exactly.
I mean, I saw literally a lot of that this off season, and that's disappointing because it wasn't done in humor. They were really seriously looking at these cards to decide on it. You like this team there, John?
Listen, I think in terms of ratings, like I know we were talking about it, before the show, Tim, that overall is not, you don't really value overall, but I do, because it's like what everyone, like how are Mo and Allison not a 90? I agree with Ryan here. I think like Virgil's my boy, but he's rated still too high. Like he's no longer an 89, he's like an 87, I would say. But Mo and Allison not being in that 90, like 89 is nice, but like seeing a player in a 90 is like gives a different aura, it is a different vibe. And Salah and Allison definitely deserve to be a 90 for me. Trent and Robbo, I think Robbo's fair. I think Trent should be rated a little higher, probably around an 87.
I mean, is Trent that slow? I mean, this is what worries me, because I'm going to pick and play with Liverpool either way.
Right.
I mean, I've done every year, even when we didn't have like all these high ratings and stuff like that. That's what worries me as a FIFA guy, is when your backs don't have speed. That's kind of risky business. 80 is not too shabby, but 76 is low.
Maybe it's because they're basing it, Tim, in terms of him always being too high up and not being able to catch up. But that's him because he's too high up. It's not necessarily because he's slow, right? So it kind of distorts the image of him being slow when, in fact, he's out of position is why he doesn't get to
He's just catching up.
Yeah, he's just catching up. But, man, Matip got a massive downgrade, and Joey G as well, which, considering their seasons last year, I can't blame them for dropping Joey G over there. Matip is... What do you guys think about Matip? You think he's fairly rated? Like,
see, Matip used to be, before we signed Konate. I mean, I always play with Matip or Gomez because, if you're a FIFA guy, speed is very important for a center back and your back line overall, because FIFA kind of overshoots and you play against these guys that are like, constantly playing a stupid long ball for their guy to chase. And if your back is not really fast, he can't keep up. So you got to play him back, or you got to adjust your tactics and stuff like that. I actually was shocked that Matip is higher than Joe. But overall, I think doesn't mean anything in this game, right, 12? Because like we were talking with John before we went on air. Like you look at Konate, for example. Konate is like a really good center back. I don't care if it's 81. His speed is 77, physical 82, dribbling 67 is not too shabby for a defender. I mean, if his shooting instead of 34 was like 50, he becomes like an 83, 84, but who cares? It's not like you're in the box constantly shooting with Konate. How do you like that? How do you like your center backs in FIFA?
Yeah. I was just going to say, if you do look at that, the numbers on that, look, Robbo was at an 81 for defense. And if you look at Trent is at an 80 for defense. So for all those haters on Trent not being defensively prowess and everything else, hey.
I know. To me, it's more like Robertson should be offended, is what I would say.
Yeah. Like an 81 for Robbo, I think is a little low considering he hasn't been 100% like at his absolute best, but in a one-on-one duel against a winger, I'd still fancy him.
Hey, I mean, Virgil got a 89, so that's my point. I mean, to be Trent and be 9 points lower in defense than possibly one of the best or greatest defensive presence in the game today. That's something that you can hold your head high on, and I'm cool with like the fact that my man Endo got in the 80s. So again, a shout out to my boy Endo, and I know it. Yeah, it's a very interesting.
I was going to get to that actually. We're going to talk midfield, but then when you start talking Manchester United, the hour just goes away. But because I know you did a lot of work on Endo and stuff like that, so I kind of wanted to get your feedback on it. But hopefully we'll have you on again because in the mornings we talk all kinds of stupid stuff. Hence today we're talking FIFA ratings, so anything stupid is possible, especially during the international break. John is going away for the international break. 12. Are you watching any international games? You said the U.S. Would you watch any of the other games or just?
I tend to watch some other leagues as well because some of the players I represent are in South America as well. So I have like some Colombian links and some Ecuadorian links. So yeah, I do watch quite a bit of international play. I'm one of those people that actually does recognize and appreciate international play. Because it is an important part of a lot of these players, just pride and joy of their own countries and everything else. And obviously, I'm a proud American myself. So when it comes to, representing for U.S. men's national team, I definitely do my best to show the same engagement and same principles that I hold for Liverpool. So it's one of those things I do hold.
You tune into the MLS 12?
I do. I have a good majority. I have a couple players that I used to represent that have played in MLS, but now have gone on and they're still involved in MLS, but they're like in coaching roles and such. But now, I do follow the MLS, especially now Messi's there. You got to kind of like keep an eye on it. It's difficult to keep up with all the leagues, though. It's difficult to keep up with all the leagues. That's all I wanted to say. Is that considering. I mean, it's hard enough to watch our own domestic league here, but much less watch the French league, the German league, just so many different Spanish league, and then to even pretend to try to mess around with like Argentina or Brazil. It's very, very difficult. A lot of leagues.
Ryan says Thiago has played 6 games in the last 2 years, and he's on 84. Anan has turned in the ratings for Thiago.
No, he hasn't, Tim, because Anan would rate him like in the 90s, man.
Yes, I'm a big Thiago fan too.
I'll hook you up with Anan. You guys can drool together for hours.
Let me just say before we go
around this table in the physio room, you guys can have a long chat with him.
Let me just say before we go. Those tickets for Messi, man. Glad that you mentioned it. He went to play New York a few weeks ago. I tried to see if I could get a ticket in freaking $300 for a not so decent seat. So, that's insane. I'm sure some of us in the comments as well could sympathize. Like, man, you just want to see the GOAT play, and they're charging an arm and a leg for that crap.
Yeah, honestly, like Chicago Fire, the game prices went up big time. I think you can get cheaper ones now because normally they play in freaking Soldier Field, so they normally don't open the top ones because it looks really ridiculous when it's empty. So they're going to do the entire stadium. So I think you can get them for not as obnoxious. I mean, you'll be all the way up there, but really, I have no inclination to go. I mean, I don't know. It's like watching an adult play with kids at times. I'll watch it on TV. Like the other day was on, and we're even talking with my wife. We're like, we wouldn't normally sit and watch Major League Soccer. We're like, let's see what he's doing, kind of a thing. But we're like soccer people, so we're like kind of into it. But yeah, it's definitely good for the sport and everything. I mean, it doesn't do a whole lot for me personally, but I was never like a Messi fanboy or anything like that either. So I guess not like John over here.
I'm not a Messi fan.
Wow.
I'm not a Messi fan.
You're going to say beep, beep, beep when you're backing the bus up, man.
Listen, man, I'm not a Messi fanboy. I just wanted to say that I saw him like at least once in my life, And I was like, I had some extra money. I was like, let's see how much the tickets are.
Hey, you got your extra money. I'll give you a Venmo address right after we go over here, so you can send it my way. I'll put it to better use apparently than you. But are you watching international games, John?
No, not really. I'm still kind of bummed that the club, that the Liverpool season kind of went, the momentum was disrupted, so to say, so to speak. Gonna try and tune into some MLS games because like there's nothing better on, I guess. Like I don't know, man.
Reason I can't take Major League Soccer seriously, number 43, they're still freaking playing during an international break. It's hard to kind of take a league seriously when a team has to play with their international players gone. That makes zero sense to me. It just says the regular season doesn't mean shit. Why don't you guys just like put that, but then don't charge for tickets accordingly? It's just kind of hard to take seriously when they have to play without their international player. Nobody else in the world is playing right now, unless they're like second division and stuff like that. But Major League Soccer, they're like, keep going, guys, keep going. Don't worry about your 3 best players being gone. Get out there and play. This is why we have squads and stuff. Do you watch the Old Country, by the way, John? Do you follow them at all or no?
The Philippines, like for those who don't know, I'm Filipino. I followed the Women's World Cup. We performed okay. I thought we were gonna get smashed. We managed to get that 1 win, which was good. The men's team is a different story. A lot of politics involved. A lot of people who are just there because they look good, and a lot of people who like are. Because I remember our goalkeeper was, I don't know if you guys remember him. He played for Cardiff, Neil Etheridge. Decent keeper. Yeah, he was a decent keeper, but he can never seem to devote enough time with the national team. So it kind of turned me off. Like whatever talent we could get who plays in the big leagues, so to speak, don't necessarily commit their time. So it's kind of rough supporting the national team as much as I would love to. But yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. I'm just glad our women's team.
Turkey plays later today, so I'll watch that. So they play actually like in 4 hours or so over here. So I'll definitely watching that because we do a pod with that with my brother and stuff too. But then afterwards, it's kind of like, I mean, I've been saying it all week. If it's on, like I turn it on as I'm working, I'll watch whatever game is on. I'm not gonna like revolve my schedule around it like I do with the Premier League. I'm not gonna be like, I can't do everything Sunday morning because Liverpool is playing or something like that. But if it fits into my schedule, if they play the games according to my schedule, then I'm more than glad to like watch it aside from Turkish games.
Hold on, Tim, before we go, because I know we're probably off like way beyond time now. Like Kazi just posted a video on the image on the Discord. Van Dijk's suspension is just 1 match and £100,000 fine because he admitted that he acted inappropriately. Oh my God, he got sent to detention and he admitted that he did something wrong, and then he got his ban just got shorted down to
so
1
wait,
match.
It's an additional 1 game or he's back when we come back?
Liverpool's Virgil van Dijk has been suspended for 1 match and fined $100,000 for admitting he acted in an improper manner and used abusive and insulting words towards a match official. Way to go, Verge. What a cheeky move.
There you go. Go apologize and call it a day. Well, Sancho is probably like, God damn, I didn't know I could do that. So we'll see. So Chris says he'll be back for Wolves. That is good news, actually. Well, see, finishing on a high note, entering the weekend. Turkey plays that high note can end shortly, but still, we'll see how it goes. 12, thanks for joining us, man. Welcome anytime. Your hashtag and everything is there. Give him a follow on YouTube as well. He does some long streams that we cannot keep up with. So buckle up, get a lot of coffee before you hop on. But thanks for joining us, man. It was a pleasure. John, thanks as always. Thanks to all those commenting. Give us a like, share, and all that kind of good stuff. Do not forget that the giveaway is going on this month for that Liverpool home kits. So if you have not already, go ahead and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And we will see you guys back Monday morning with the Polish Prince. I will be over here. Let's see what he's up to. God knows, but we'll find out. Have a great weekend, everybody. I know there's no Liverpool, so take the weekend off, regroup, because they're coming back. Have a good day. Take care.